Welcome everybody to the May 2025 Indoor Raleigh Astronomy Club meeting. So do we have anybody who's a first time guest in here? Yay, I met Christian a while ago. Everybody say hey to Christian. Do we have anybody? Well, Chuck. Sorry. So do we have anybody online that's first time? Send something in chat. Okay. Do you want everybody to wait till the end to ask questions or ask questions during your presentation? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll probably wait till the end. So safety tonight, we're kind of crowded in here, and Chuck's got some stuff around and cables. We got purses around. Barton's got his pocketbook on him, and so then we've got stuff in the back. So please be careful. Okay, cables behind the projector, chairs, bags, low light. Okay, who's CPR in here? There you go, Frank. Come to me first. Okay. If multiple people need it, short guy first. Blair's my designated emergency caller. Susan is my designated emergency caller. Okay. Fire equipment is behind the, right before you go into the kitchen area there. Please be aware of your surroundings. If you're at home, let us know if you need anything. Wow. Okay. Everybody knows the evacuation route to get out the door, other door, locked doors. Don't go to the elevator. Okay, here's our upcoming events. I'll go through them really quick. So Weatherstone Elementary School, I just got these right off the calendar, guys. So it's all on there. I'm not going to bleed the slide. Okay. And I just went 4 weeks into the future. Okay, tonight's presentation. So Chuck Allen, welcome, Chuck. Chuck Allen is the current president of the Astronomical League with past service in that position from 98 to 2002. A League lifetime member, he founded the National Young Astronomers Award in 1991, receiving the G.R. Wright Award for service in 1998. He co-chaired Alcor 21 virtually, because we were all COVID-y, and chaired the League bylaws revision project. An amateur astronomer from age 7, he holds the League's Master Observer Gold, Herschel Society Gold, Master Outreach Award, and he's given more than 550 public presentations, including more than 50 appearances in Global Star parties and League live programs, and coordinates 3 League observing programs. So I'm turning this over to you. It'll take us a second to switch presentations. As I always say, please let us raise our hand so we can get your question online at the same time.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me. I've gotten around to about 34 clubs over the last couple of years, and I've wanted to get back to this area for a long time. I have to say that the Raleigh-Durham area has grown just a little bit since I graduated from Duke in 1970. I think you're making a run at Dallas-Fort Worth. Now that you know I'm from the enemy camp up the road, I will share with you the fact that I am a huge basketball fan. And as such, we all have huge traumas in our life. And those traumas can last a long time before they heal. For Houston, it was Lorenzo Charles in 1982. I'm sure many of you remember that. For Georgetown, it was James Worthy intercepting a very poor pass by Fred Brown. For Kentucky, it was Christian Laettner shot in 92. And for me, it was a game played in 1968. We had just beaten North Carolina in the last game of the season, 87-86 in triple overtime. We were off to the ACC tournament that you had to win in those days. in order to go, but we were number 6 in the country, so we were excited to get to a game with Carolina in the final. Well, we ran into NC State in the semifinal. And for some reason, Norm Sloan decided he did not want to play against our zone. So they held the ball. It was 4-2 at halftime. And 6-2 Duke early in the second half. And then Eddie Biedenbach was instructed to hold the ball again for 16 minutes. And ultimately, State won the game 12-10. Yeah. Now, this was a traumatic moment for me because I knew the players on that team pretty well. But time heals all wounds. So has it healed? No, it hasn't. Okay. So we can dim the lights just a little bit now, perhaps. I'm sorry. I'm sure. Hey, I pulled for you guys in the Final Four last year after you trashed us. Okay. We're going to talk tonight just about some conceptualization of distances. A little more. Yeah. Less light. Like you had it before. Okay. So what we're going to talk about tonight is just conceptualizing some distances in the universe. And I'm going to start off by showing you a picture that was taken at the Milwaukee Convention of the Astronomical League in 1965. I'm dating myself badly here, but I'm in this picture. This is the close-up here of me. And to the left of me in the picture, you will see somebody in a kind of a plaid suit jacket. I'm sorry. I didn't do that, did I? Sorry. There's a delay here. Well, okay, we'll do it up here. Now, the reason I'm showing you this picture is because Richard Gott, who's in the plaid jacket there, is a poorly educated individual. He was educated at Harvard, Princeton, Cambridge, and Caltech. He is a retired astrophysicist at Princeton University, and my closest friend and my longest friend. I've known him since I was 11 years old, and he was 12. And we talk every night at about midnight when I'm home, and sometimes many hours. So I get kind of firsthand information about the state of astronomy and especially cosmology, which I love a great deal. Now, when this picture was taken in 1965, the world altitude record was a paltry 295 miles. And it was set by the Voskhod 2, a Soviet spacecraft, which bore Alexei Leonov and Pavel Belyaev. And this picture you see here is the very first EVA. This was Leonov leaving the capsule, the first space EVA in history. That record was broken 1,000-fold in just 5 years. In 1970, we set a new altitude record. Apollo 8 did it first, but then the somewhat ill-fated Apollo 13 mission achieved an altitude of 249,205 miles above the surface of the Earth. And the reason that happened is because they did a free return trajectory around the moon, not falling into close orbit around the moon. And the moon on that very day was at apogee. It was the furthest from the Earth that it gets. That record, however, even though it increased our altitude record 1,000-fold in 5 years, is still the world altitude record. We've never broken it since. Kind of pathetic if you think about it. Of course, we're interested in going here. And that's going to take some doing. And we know that getting to Mars doesn't seem like it should be all that hard because Mars does get as close as 34 million miles to us. Now, if you want to see a demonstration of that, here you have the Earth and Moon a ½ inch apart, and there's Mars. Not all that far. So why don't we just go out and meet Mars when it's at opposition, intercept it when it comes around at opposition. We certainly don't want to go to it when it's 250 million miles away. That would be the red light back there in the corner of the room. That makes no sense at all. So what will we do? Well, here's the problem with intercepting Mars when it's that close to us. First of all, you have to undo the Earth's orbital velocity of 67,000 miles per hour. Now that is essentially close to 2.5 times the escape velocity from the Earth. That takes a world of fuel to accomplish. Worse, in order to go out and meet Mars at opposition, you have to basically climb straight out of Earth's gravity well. You don't zigzag up the side of a mountain, you go straight up the mountain. It takes even more fuel, and it's simply not efficient to do. So what we will do is not go to Mars when it's there, and not go to Mars when it's there, but go to Mars when it's there on the back wall, if you can see past the curtain, 300 million miles away. And we'll do it using something called the Hohmann transfer orbit. We use the speed, the orbital speed of the Earth that the rocket has when it's sitting on the launch pad. And we simply boost outward a little bit and drift along with all that Earth's orbital speed and let Mars pull us into orbit later on. Works like a charm. But it takes about 9 months. And you have to do it at such a time that Mars will be where it was in that diagram. And you can see the relative positions of the Earth and Mars here. I don't know whose bright idea it was to use green for Mars in this image, but nonetheless. Well, here's the question. What's the closest planet to the Earth? Now, I know you're thinking, well, it's Venus. We all know that. Venus gets within 24 million miles. But isn't the closest planet to us? In a sense, it is, because it does get closer than any other planet at some times. But if you average the distance between the Earth and the planets over time, let's say 5 years arbitrarily, you'll find that Mercury is closest to us 47% of the time. Its average distance over time is only 97 million miles, slightly better than Venus and a lot better than Mars. So distance can be a little tricky here. Well, we talked about the world altitude record a moment ago, but what about the world altitude record for unmanned space vehicles? That, of course, belongs to Voyager 1, which is now over 15 billion miles from Earth. That's 5 times the distance to Neptune. That's a long way. It's taken 48 years to get there. It's traveling at over 38,000 miles per hour and is not slowing down very much at all because it's so far away from the sun now. But what if it were aimed at Proxima Centauri, the closest star to the sun? It's not, but if it were, how long would Voyager 1 take to reach that closest star to us? And the answer is just a mere 75,000 years. This will give you some idea of the huge distances between stars, because the 4 light-year distance between us and the Alpha Centauri system is about the average spacing of stars in the spiral arms of our galaxy. All of you are used to this view in the summertime, looking at those beautiful star clouds in Scutum and Sagittarius. But have you ever thought about how far you were seeing when you were looking at these? And the answer is you're looking at a distance between the sun's location, which you see in the middle of the diagram, but your view is being blocked at the core of the galaxy by the Scutum Centaurus arm of the galaxy, which is about 10,000 light years away. So what you're actually seeing when you look at those summer images of the Milky Way in the south, you're seeing a distance of about 60 quadrillion miles. And that's about 20 million times further than the distance to Neptune. If that suggests to you that the galaxy is a big place, I offer a 50-cent piece to you. If you can imagine that this 50-cent piece's circumference represents the orbit of Neptune, the Milky Way galaxy would be the size of North America by comparison, and about 250 miles thick on average. So it's a huge, huge place. But it's part of a local group of galaxies, of course. The 2 principal members other than the Milky Way are seen here. They're not, this is a combined picture, it's a collage, showing to scale M31 and M33 in Triangulum. And they are the first and third largest galaxies in our local group. We're number 2. The next 3 largest are NGC 3109 and our 2 Magellanic Clouds. So they're pretty substantial, the large and small clouds. The rest of the galaxies in our local group, and there are about 50 more, are dwarf galaxies, including a couple of fairly substantial galaxies orbiting Andromeda, as you know. Here is that local group, and the distance to Andromeda, as you know, is about 2.5 million light years. Now, I try to put some perspective on that, and here's the first reference I'm going to make to my friend Richard Gott again. Because I was over having Christmas dinner at their house when Richard was in town from Princeton back in the 90s. His mother had dinner for us. And apparently I said something during that dinner, because the next year I went over there, and this lady, who was an elegant lady who was president of the garden club, had a garbage bag as her centerpiece. And that made no sense to me at all. Well, then there was an unveiling. And what was unveiled was a bowl containing 1 million beads. These were scientifically weighed in groups of 5,000. And Richard assures me that based on those weighings, these are 1 million beads plus or minus 30, based on those counts. And so I thought, what if each of these beads represented a mile? How many bowls of beads would I need to get me from here to Andromeda? That's an easy calculation. And if you can imagine a line of bowls side by side, 1 million here, 1 million here, 1 million here, just a long line of bowls. In order to have enough miles to get you to Andromeda, you would need a line of bowls from here to the planet Neptune, 3 billion miles of bowls. It's a long way away. And yet we'll meet again, won't we, with Andromeda in about 4.5 billion years. Some scientists believe we met with Andromeda before, about 5 or 6 billion years ago, that we passed very close to Andromeda, and that Andromeda may have ripped off some of our companion galaxies in the process. This is what the view looking back from Andromeda might look like. This was prepared to scale to show the Milky Way and its bar and the large and small Magellanic Clouds. So maybe someone's having a meeting up there, and we'll go out observing later and aim a pair of binoculars at this. Well, we find ourselves at the end of a long tentacle of galaxies. And in the little box here, you see the Milky Way, Andromeda, and M33, our local group. I've illuminated here the Milky Way and Andromeda, 2.5 million light years apart. But we're part of a larger structure, and that larger structure includes NGC 5128, which we sometimes refer to as Centaurus A, and I'll show you the next slide pointing out the location of these things. We have here M81 at about 12 million light years, excuse me. We have M101 at 25. We have M51 at 27. We have M104, the Sombrero Galaxy, at about 31 million light years. And then we have the Virgo cluster here, the Canes cloud here, and Ursa Major clouds up here. There are about 2,000 galaxies represented by this globe here, the Virgo cluster. So if you're wondering why we see so many bright galaxies, when we look in the direction of Virgo and Boötes, for example, this is the reason. Because you are looking up this tentacle at huge clusters of galaxies. On the other side of us is NGC 253 and Sculptor. And it's sort of the end of the line, because beyond that is a void that's about 3 to 4 times longer in width than this entire set here. So when you observe galaxies in that direction, or in these other directions, you're looking over voids of 100 to 200 million light years. That makes those galaxies a lot tougher to observe, certainly. This is the Virgo cluster seen with some bright stars blocked out so they don't create glare, and famous galaxies easily seen in small telescopes. And here you see the full moon to give you some perspective in the size that this subtends in the sky. Well, if we back away from the Virgo cluster, which you see in the middle top, the red dot is the local group, we start seeing a larger structure called Laniakea, which in Hawaiian means immeasurable heaven. Except we have measured it. It's about 250 million light years in width. Now, this is a 2-dimensional representation of something that obviously exists in 3. So these voids aren't really in a flat relationship like this, but this gives you some idea of the nature of the structure. If we back away a little bit further to about 500 million light years, we begin to see Laniakea in its relationship with other similar clusters. Now, these lines that you see here represent flow, the movement of these galaxies toward that upper left part of the yellow, which is called the great attractor. And all the galaxies, including us and the Virgo cluster, seem to be flowing in that direction. We're at the red dot. The Virgo cluster is that first mess just to the upper left of the red dot. If we back away a little bit further to 1 billion light years, that whole cluster I just showed you begins to become part of a giant web-like structure. And if we back away even further, we see something that is now known, of course, as the cosmic web. And who was the first person to propose the cosmic web? The idea that the universe has a sponge-like structure, sort of like Swiss cheese. You can eat your way all the way through the cheese, or you can fly your way all the way through the cheese, because all the voids are connected too. And the first person to conclude that was in a paper in 1986, and that was Richard Gott, my friend since 1960. And those are some diagrams from his book, from his paper rather, that proposed this way back then. Yes. Now here we have something that you might observe very easily in a small telescope. Remember, we're talking about perspectives on distance now. And this is 3C273. It's a quasar. This is simply a very active galactic nucleus. It's got a supermassive black hole that's accreting matter and creating enormous amounts of radiation at the core of the galaxy. It's about 2.4 billion light years away. That's how long the light's taken to reach your eye when you see it. To give you some perspective on how far that is, I'm going to reduce this whole Virgo cluster to this and ask you to look at the white light back there in the back of the room. That's how far you're seeing when you observe this. And it's just 13th magnitude. It's easy to see even in an 8-inch if you can find this V-shaped pattern. But you can do even better if you've got access, and I'm sure you do, to 10 and 12-inch telescopes. Go look for PG 1634 plus 706 in Draco. It's the little 14.6 magnitude speck that you see there. It's about the same magnitude as Pluto right now. It's easy to find because there are 2 8th magnitude stars in the field with it, which lead you right to this triangle. And then there's a little arc of 3 14th magnitude specks that lead to it. And when you see it, you will be seeing a quasar that is shining at you from, whose light has traveled to you for 9.6 billion years. That is nearly twice the age of the Earth. That's how long it took. That's 200 million times further than Proxima Centauri. And you can do even better. I know you've got access to Dobbs. If you've got a Dobb, you can go, this is, by the way, what you're actually seeing with the Draco quasar. The light left there took 9.6 billion years to reach us, and now that quasar has receded to a distance of over 12 billion light years, because the whole time the light was traveling to us, the universe was doing what? It was expanding. But here is APM 08279 plus 5255 in lengths. I have never yet met a professional astronomer who's observed it. And believe me, I ask. If you observe this, and it's about 15th magnitude, take some searching, you have to chart it. When you observe this, you will be seeing light that has taken 12 billion years to reach your eye. The universe is 13.8 billion years old, so think about that a minute. But with telescopes that we put in space, we can do even better. And with the Hubble and the James Webb and the Subaru telescope competing to find the furthest possible things that we've ever been able to observe, and we're looking back in time now. For a long time, that record was GNZ 11 and Ursa Major, light travel time of 13.39 billion light years. Now, that was the record in just 2015. Notice that it's not that much further in terms of light travel time than that APM thing that you can see in the dot. The record was broken with HD1 just a little bit further, and the current record is held by JADE's GSZ14. This is a little red blotch that you see semi-blocked by a foreground galaxy. That white is not part of it. And the redshift of this indicates that the light has taken 13.5 billion years to reach us. That means that we're seeing it as it was just 300 million years after the Big Bang. That's early in the universe, at a time when we didn't even know galaxies had had time to form yet from the gas, from the Big Bang. Today, in whatever form this galaxy has, and we don't know, it's probably a big elliptical now after combining with other galaxies, it's 33, almost 34 billion light years away. Well, suppose you were floating in space. Suppose you had a mile-wide mirror on a giant space telescope, and you and a friend were floating in space looking at this. And your friend turns to you and says, "How far is it?" Well, in this particular case, it really does matter what the meaning of is, because there are three possible answers. One is 1 billion light years, because that's how far away Jade Z14 was when the light left there. Okay? So why did it take 13.5 billion years to reach us, this light? Well, because the universe was expanding very fast in the early universe. And so it took a long time to reach us. So the second answer you might give is 13.5 billion light years. But where is it today? That's the third answer. Close to 34 billion light years away, because the whole time the light was traveling to us, the universe was expanding. To understand this a little bit, we need to understand that none of those distances really work. We know it's not a billion light years away because the light took 13.5 billion years to reach us. We know it's not 13.5 billion light years away because if you could magically go up the light path 13.5 billion light years, there'd be nothing there. And how could it possibly have receded to 33 billion light years in the 13.8 billion years the universe has been around? It doesn't seem like any of them work. And here's the problem. It has to do with the dynamic nature of the universe. So focus now on a father taking his daughter to teach her to swim. And we have here the father at the top standing 10 feet away, and his daughter's hanging onto the wall. And that wall is going to be representing Jade Z14. And the daughter is going to represent a photon that's heading our way. And then we have the father 10 feet away, and the daughter's going to swim to her. Now, my dad did this to me, only he backed up the entire time I was swimming to him. But this father's not going to do that, but he has a different problem because this is a magic swimming pool. The swimming pool constantly expands. The walls separate, the floor of the pool stretches, extra water is sprinkled in to keep the depth up. And so as she's swimming, she ends up having to swim 100 feet in order to get to her father. And when she looks over her shoulder, lo and behold, the galaxy is now 300 feet behind her. This is the dynamic nature of the universe. What you're seeing here is the galaxy was 1 billion light years away when the light left the wall. It had to swim 13.5 billion light years to get to us. And by the time it did, the wall had receded to 300 feet or 33.5 billion light years. Now, this is a representation. I'm not going to dwell on this too long, but I'm trying to represent here in the light blue the range from which lights had time to reach us. That would be 13.8 billion light years. The yellow line around that is a distance of 14.4 billion light years. What's that about? Well, we know if we have a rubber sheet, we have two dots on one side of the rubber sheet and one dot on the other side. If we stretch that rubber sheet to the size of this room, these two dots are going to separate about like this. Those other two dots are going to separate like crazy. The further apart two things are in the universe, the faster they separate from each other. It's not because they're racing through space. It's because the space is expanding. And so what we have there is called the Hubble distance. That is the distance at which any object will be separating from us at the speed of light. Now, represented here is the light travel distance from Jade Z14, 13.5 billion light years. And we know today it's out at 33. Okay? Now, all other galaxies are closer because that's the record holder, Jade Z14. All other galaxies are closer, and most galaxies, of course, are further away because the further away you go, the more volume of shells you have and evenly distributed, you'd have more galaxies at greater distance. Well, let's suppose for a moment that right after the universe became transparent, shortly after the Big Bang, there had been a galaxy already formed whose light took the entire age of the universe, 13.8 billion years, to reach us. The light travel distance would be from the edge of the light blue. That galaxy today would be at 46 billion light years. And that's called the cosmic particle horizon, or as professional astronomers refer to it, the edge of the observable universe. It's not an edge, it's just a distance. But it is the location today of the furthest possible thing that we could see today. Because anything whose light needs more than 13.8 billion years to reach us, that light hadn't gotten here yet. So this is our observable universe. It has a radius of 46 billion light years. Very simple. And there are many observable universes. Every place in the universe has one. Some overlap ours, most don't. But what if we had a galaxy at 15 billion light years? Now think about this. It's outside the Hubble distance, which means it's receding from us, not receding, but separating from us at greater than the speed of light. Suppose a supernova were to go off in that galaxy right now. Now, the first question we need to ask is, first of all, can we see this galaxy? Sure, we can see the one out at 33. And the reason we can see this one at 15 is because its old light that left there long ago is flowing in now. But what if a supernova goes off in this galaxy today at a point that's separating from us at greater than the speed of light? Will we ever see the light from that supernova? You'd think the answer would be no. But actually it can, because even though it's separating from us at greater than the speed of light, the distance between it and that yellow line is not. And so the photons can make it into the Hubble distance, and once they do that, they will make it eventually the rest of the way. But this is only good out to a distance of 16 billion light years. That light can just barely get inside the Hubble distance, and anything beyond 16 cannot. And this is called another horizon called the cosmic event horizon. 16 billion light years. Anything that occurs beyond 16 billion light years, we will never see. It is a fact that anything beyond that distance is unreachable. Now, here's the interesting thing about being unreachable. It means you can fire up your Enterprise to warp 1. You're never going to get there. Okay? Somebody can send us a message from this galaxy. It's never going to get here. Look at how many galaxies we see in our deep field that are unreachable up there at the top. In point of fact, almost 97% of galaxies that we can see today are unreachable. The last photons that we will ever see from those galaxies left there long ago. They're still flowing in, so you don't have to rush out and observe these before you lose them. But eventually, those galaxies will get redder and redder, dimmer and dimmer. The time of these galaxies will appear to slow and slow, and they just slowly fade out of vision. Wavelengths longer and longer. So this is the universe as we see it. It seems limited because we're looking back in time. And hence, if we look too far back in time, we look back into an era before galaxies had time to form. But in point of fact, the universe is actually like this today. If you could imagine a universe in which light had infinite speed, so it's just a question of how big a mirror you have in your telescope in terms of how far you can see, we would see things at enormous distances, but we can't. We're looking back in time, and we're stuck with the speed of light. Now, we're getting near the end here. And so the question people always have is, well, how big is the whole thing? And to determine that, we have to know something about the geometry of the universe. Is it curved? That is to say, if you erect a triangle among 3 galaxies, will that triangle have 180 degrees like you studied in geometry? Or will it have less than 180 degrees, such as being inscribed on a saddle? Or would it have more than 180 degrees, such as inscribed on the surface of a sphere? Now, we put up 3 satellites, COBE, WMAP, the Planck satellite, to study those temperature modelings called anisotropies in the cosmic microwave background to try to determine which of these is correct. Most astrophysicists believe the universe is probably open, but we're perched. The Planck satellite says the universe is flat. So how big is the whole universe? Well, if it's open or flat, it's either infinite and always has been infinite, or it will reach an infinite size at an infinite date in the future, in the case of it being flat. But it's still possible the universe is closed, which means it would be finite, but unbounded. Now, how big could that be? And this is where we can put a minimum size on the whole universe, because the Planck satellite has an error, a margin of error of 0.4%. That's 1 part in 250. It says the universe is perfectly flat. If the universe were closed and finite, if it were curved in that manner, we would expect to be able to detect that curvature with the Planck satellite if the universe was less than 250 times bigger than the observable part that we see, and we can't detect it. So the universe would have to be at least 250 times larger in radius. That's 15 million times bigger in volume than the volume of our observable universe out to 46 billion light years. So it's huge, even if it's closed. In fact, that would be the absolute minimum size, and no astrophysicist thinks it would be that small if it were closed. Alan Guth thinks it would be on the order of 300 sextillion times larger than our observable universe. Andre Linde said maybe 10 to the 40,000th power times larger. Now, if you want to type that number at home, use Times New Roman type, 12 point font, type a 1, and 2 miles of zeros. Now, I know at this point you're tired and you're feeling really small. I've made you feel terribly small, but I don't want you to. So I want you to focus for a moment on the fact that our universe is a range of scales that ranges all the way from the Planck length to the observable universe. These are observable limits for us. Now, what is this Planck length at 1 times 10 to the minus 35 meters? That is a distance of about a quadrillionth the size of a proton. It is the realm at which time and space become roiled. It's where quantum uncertainty reaches 100%. Here's how to think about it. If you were trying to observe something that was a Planck length across, you'd have to use electromagnetic radiation that had a wavelength of a Planck length. Otherwise, it would be like trying to observe a green pea with radar. You wouldn't be able to do it. And if you used electromagnetic radiation with that kind of wavelength, it would inject so much energy into the Planck length that it would turn it into a black hole and you'd get nothing back. So that's the smallest size in our universe. The observable universe we've talked about. Notice there are 62 orders of magnitude, multiples of 10, between the smallest and the largest. What's the median at 31 orders of magnitude? Dust grains floating in a sunbeam. It's the smallest thing you can see with the unaided eye. And we are at least 4, almost 5 orders of magnitude larger than that. So you're pretty big after all. You're bigger than the median-sized thing in this range of observational limits. Another thing you can do is buy one of these. This is a cubic inch of tungsten. Now, the reason I like this is it has the same density as gold. It's really heavy. And in here, we have 1 septillion atoms. That's actually 1.03 septillion, but we'll ignore that 300 sextillion, or 30 sextillion extra. 1 septillion atoms. This is more atoms in here than there are stars in our entire observable universe. And that's assuming there are 2 trillion galaxies within that range. And yet, like the universe, this is 99.99999999996% empty space. Does it feel empty to you? I don't think so. So don't feel too small. Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed being here and look forward to talking with you afterwards. Thank you.
Is that the next level above quintillions?
Quintillion, sextillion, septillion. This is 1 septillion. It's right above sextillion. quadrillion, quintillion, sextillion, septillion. That's 1 septillion. This is Avogadro's number at work. You just take the mass of this, you divide it by the atomic weight, and you multiply by Avogadro's number, and it gives you the number of atoms. So, any questions? And this is an area where, for some reason, people always seem hesitant to ask questions, and I hope you won't, because it takes years to get comfortable with some of these concepts, and there are no bad questions. And if not, yes, ma'am.
Hold on, Ann.
So is this on? I'm good. Okay. So a few slides back, you were talking about the voids.
Yes.
The voids. What are those exactly? Is that empty, devoid of stars, or what are the
Devoid of
voids?
galaxies. There are occasional galaxies in those voids. I mean, it's not a perfectly empty space, but it's a much emptier space than you find in the filaments of galaxy clusters. And these galaxy clusters that form these filaments, these filaments are tightening. They're getting narrower, which makes the voids more discrete over time. Interestingly, this cosmic web structure, by the way, is thought to have been created by sonic events that occurred during the initial Big Bang that created some unevenness that has now expanded to form that web. Yes, sir.
So is it the right form of question to say how far out is the cosmic microwave background noise?
Well, essentially, it's coming from 13.8 billion light years, but it's suffusing space. It's everywhere you look. It's just heat in the universe. So it's not really at a distance.
Right. We are in it.
Yes.
It's not out there.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Yes.
space itself is actually expanding faster than the speed of light. Further out.
You can't say that. Once again, the further apart you get, the faster the separation is. Okay. For example, the galaxy JADE's Z14 is at 35 billion light years right now. So it today, in whatever form it has today, it might be a big elliptical now, is receding from us at more than twice the speed of light. If it were twice as far away, it would be even faster. There's no speed at which space expands. If the universe is infinite, it wouldn't make any sense. And even if it's finite, you can't talk about anything about speed unless you compare 2 points in the universe. Speed only has meaning when you define 2 points and ask how fast they're separating. The further apart they are, the faster they separate.
That number can be faster than the speed of light.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the problem is YouTube and movies that always show the Big Bang as a firecracker going off in an empty room. Or the picture of the balloon. That balloon analogy is not the volume of space. It's the surface of the balloon that represents space. It's an analogy. It's showing you that it has a finite size, the surface area of the sphere, and that size is getting bigger as the balloon expands. The interior of the balloon is time. It's the past. It's not a place. And so there's no expansion of this balloon from a point in space outward. It's not expanding into anything. It's everything.
Which is why the question is, that's because it doesn't matter where you are in the universe. Everything seems to be expanding away from you, no
That's
matter
right.
where you are.
When people ask me where the Big Bang occurred or where the center of the universe is, I say, put your finger on the end of your nose, because it was there. Yes, sir.
So, wait,
Yeah, let the microphone come to you.
in some of the clubs that I've been, I've heard people ask, what was out there before the Big Bang? And if James Webb telescope could see all the way back to the Big Bang, only thing I would tell them is modify Genesis verse 1, chapter 1, and say with the creation. And in order to create the creation, he created the Big Bang, which set everything out into its proper place. And the process still continues today.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So did the universe have a beginning?
Well, our space clearly does. And we think it's called the Big Bang. And preceding that was this era of inflation, which lasted a couple of undecillionths of a second. The question is, did something precede that? There are theories, Roger Penrose suggests that the universe is cyclical, that it collapsed and expanded again. There are other people who believe there's a companion universe that erupted from our Big Bang with antimatter prevailing, that we don't have much of in our universe. Turok and Steinhardt proposed that the universe is like existing on a membrane that collapses against another one every trillion years or so and ignites a new Big Bang in the universe. There are just all kinds of different theories out there. All we know for certain is that our universe has been expanding for about 13.8 billion years from some hot event that we can calculate back because we know the temperature of the cosmic microwave background today. And knowing more than that for certain, no one does. There's also, let me add, bubble universe theory is taking on a life of its own now among astrophysicists. And this is the idea that our universe actually started, according to Alan Guth, with inflation. And this was when a little quantum-sized area, because a quantum fluctuation can occur, had too much energy density in it. And the math shows that that would be gravitationally repulsive. And it would just erupt in size, like 78 doublings in an undecillionth of a second. And that out of this inflating sea of high energy density, bubbles of true vacuum would nucleate because it's unstable physically. And one bubble of true vacuum would be our universe, and other bubbles would undoubtedly also nucleate out of this. So that's what, when you hear about bubble universes, that comes from inflation theory that's been a very dominant theory for over 45 years now. People have been attacking it and attacking it and attacking it, and none of them successfully. And there have been tests run, power spectrums run that seem to confirm it. So keep that in mind. And that's a higher space that we're talking about these bubbles exist in. Our universe is everywhere for us, but not necessarily the only one.
You have question online.
Yes.
You mentioned the great attractor. Is there more or less accepted theory on what that is?
No. No one's certain what it is. It's in Norma, constellation of Norma in the southern hemisphere constellation. We just know everything's flowing in that direction. It's obviously something massive. Could be just a massive galaxy cluster, but it would have to be enormous.
Anybody else got any question?
Yeah, well, I'm familiar with that because I drove past Durham today with 2 graduations going on at UNC in Durham. I'm familiar with the traffic. This is a model of the Virgo cluster with the local group here, Milky Way and Andromeda, some familiar galaxies, M81, M101, and so forth, and the Virgo cluster here. And it just demonstrates why, when you look in the direction of Virgo, you see a lot of bright galaxies. But when you look in other directions, you're looking into voids and you don't see bright ones. Anything else?
There's
Well,
no
if you
more.
have more questions, I'll be around.
All right. Can we get one more round of applause?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We're going to take a 5-minute break before the business meeting.